Welcome everybody to Node.js tutorial for beginners. In this video, I'll be teaching you everything you need to know about Node.js. I assume that you guys have heard of Node.js before, but you may not know exactly what it is. You probably just know that it's becoming really popular and that you can make great stuff for internet. So some of you guys are like, alright, you know what, I already know PHP, sounds like it can do all those things. Well, the reason Node.js is becoming so popular for one reason is because it's awesome for real-time stuff. For example, if you want a chat application and of course you would want to be updated in real time, well, PHP isn't that great for those kinds of applications. It's kind of slow and it uses a lot of memory resources. Now to explain all of the benefits of Node.js, I'm going to have to show you guys some examples. So the first thing we should do is install the software. So in this video I'll show you guys how to install it for Windows. And try some sample examples. And now click this button and it will download an MSI file, which is essentially just a wizard and it's really easy to install. So wait, let's get done. Double click it and just run it and then click next. Do not change this, make sure that it's right in your program files. Alright, apparently it completed. Easy is that. Let's go ahead and finish it. And now what we do, how do we know for sure that it actually installed? Well, the first and the probably easiest test that you can do is go to command prompt, write cmd, and that will open the command prompt. So what it did, whenever it installed, it sets up a system path. So now we can actually run it by typing the word node. And just the test again, I know that I'm not explaining syntax or anything, this is pretty much just the test and to make sure that everything is installed properly. Well, if we type console.log and inside here you just type something like beacon, and this means that it will print some text on the console. So don't really worry about the syntax, just copy this, make sure and everything is working. If it's not, then go back and make sure that you kept all the defaults whenever you installed it. But if you see the word beacon undefined, then you are good to go. So of course what we can do is we can type bunch of nodes.js in this, but it's better to use a program for this. So the program which I will recommend for you is, so the IDE I would recommend for you is from JetBrains WebStorm. I would highly recommend it for you, and in this video I would be using this IDE to perform all my tasks. Now let's run this IDE. So here is the IntelliJ. So I'll tell you now how to make a project and run node.js programs in it. The first thing we want to do whenever we have our IDE installed is create a new project. So go here, and what we want to choose from here is just a static web application. This is just a blank on web application, nothing fancy. It's pretty much like the most basic projects you can make. So I'm going to click next. Here we'll keep a name for it and the path. So let's keep the name Bucky. Just have a directory called Bucky, which is our main directory, and this is the folder right here. It's pretty just all the settings for JetBrains or IDE. So right now we have pretty much a blank project folder with nothing in it. So the first thing of course we will do is create some kind of file. We'll right click on our main project and we can select new JavaScript and name this file app.js. This is going to be our starting point. In other words, whenever we start making node.js applications, our program is going to look for this file first, and whatever code it in here, it's going to run. So it's like our main file. Simple enough. So if I just want to actually just do this, so console.log and beacon, and if we either right click and run this, check out what happens. So it's pretty much the exact same thing as we did in the command line. You can see this is a little bit cleaner and gives us a few more tools than that. However, there are few things there that I want to take care of. The first thing is this: whenever we start running actual applications, we of course want to make these for websites most of the time, instead of just having the user as a terminal or command prompt. So what I'm going to do is this: I'm going to go up to this little drop down menu in the top right, and I'm going to choose edit configurations, and this is pretty much saying how do you want to set up on your program to run well. If you click the browser live edit tab, then you can say this: after this program launches, then open it, and you can choose whatever browser you want. I of course am using Chrome as my default. If you don't have, then get it. So again, after this launches, then don't just run everything in the terminal. Actually open it up in an actual website. So up HTTP localhost, which means my computer, port 888. So again, whenever we are making node.js applications, we are going to have to say that this arm in the correct location, but we will take care of that whenever I show you guys how to do everything, just setting everything up now. So just hit apply, okay, and if we run this right now, then it's not going to open in Chrome, and that's because we are not giving it any code to open in Chrome right now, because all this says is print some text out to the terminal, which is this. So I know it's kind of confusing, but you guys are going to see later on whenever we start making actual node.js apps. That actually makes sense. So one other thing that I want to explain is this: eventually when you start typing natural node.js, you are going to set some things from your IDE. So in order to get rid of those warnings, we need to tell the IntelliJ, or actually think of you are using WebStorm, then everything is going to run fine. But if you are using another IDE from JetBrains, and this is what you need to do: go to File, Settings, and first of all you need to install the node.js plugins. So I said this WebStorm right here. If I actually just click it, it's already set up for node.js. However, if you have a, I don't know, another product like IntelliJ, this is mostly you can see for Java. However, you can tweak it to pretty much use with node.js. So this is how you do that. You go to the plugins and type in node.js. Now you are going to see a plugin called node.js, which is pretty much means I want to be able to write node.js code in this piece of software. So you install that. I of course already have installed it, so that's why it says uninstall for me, but you will see a thing that says install. Click that, and once it's installed, there is another thing you need to do. I actually could have got that, but if you go to the file settings, you can click languages and frameworks, expand JavaScript right there, and click on libraries. Now you can see we now have few additional libraries that is capable of understanding. So we want to just enable Node.js and Node.js global again, the core module and globals, and again you don't really have to worry about exactly what this is right now. We are just telling our program that says, hey, whenever we start typing Node.js code, don't get tweaked out and freak out, because you don't understand what it is. So those libraries, whenever we enable them, it just says be aware that we are going to be developing Node.js in here. That's it. So now we are good to go. Next I will show you some basic concepts of JavaScript which are important for Node.js. There are some concepts that are really important to understand. So the first piece of information is this: whenever you make objects in Node.js, they are the exact same as JavaScript. So for example, you can have like first name, and last name, and something like age. So again, what you can do is you can actually call console.log and just print out this entire object. Make sure you have the semicolon in there. It will show you the objects. Now another thing I want to point out is this: so whenever you are typing JavaScript, it's pretty much just code that runs in your browser. It runs unless you have like a while loop in there, or else it just completes and it's done. However, this code right here thinks of it as code that's going to run on your server. So it's a little bit different, and Node.js code is going to run on your server and it's going to run continuously. So this process is still going. On until we stop it. Now if you try to run this again, I already set it up, so it says, are you sure you want to run this again? Because you already have a process running. I set it up to just reboot it, but again think of it like that. Again, all this code is going to run on your server side. Alright, so now I've got that taken care of. Another thing I want to point out is this. So let's say that you have a function called add numbers, and you just try to add two numbers together, a and b. Of course this just returns a plus b. So in Node.js console.log, let's say 7 and 3. Alright, so whenever you have a function, you try to log it out. What it is going to do is it prints out the data returned. So again whenever I run this, it's gonna print out 10. So any function you print out, it's gonna print the return data. So why do I say that there's gonna come, like let's say there is a function called worthless, and it doesn't gonna take any parameters, because all this function does is nothing at all. So whenever we try to run it and run, so the output is undefined. So that's another concept that's you are gonna come across a lot. Any function without any explicit return statement is always gonna return undefined. So we actually saw that before when we just logged something out in our very first test code. Now one other thing I want to show you guys is this. What you can do is you can actually have a variable, and we will just say print beacon, and you can set a variable equal to an anonymous function. So that we have a function like function is equal to console.log beacon is healthy, don't believe the doctors. Alright, so we pretty much have a function that prints something out, and what we are doing is this. We are taking this entire function and we are setting it to the print beacon variable. Now we can do like print beacon and look what's happening. So of course whenever you run this, you know what's going to happen. It's going to print out beacon is healthy, don't believe the doctor. But the point is, you don't need a name for the function. So most of the time whenever we create functions, we have names, so we can reference them and use them whenever we want them, obviously. However, there isn't really a point in giving this function a name. So in Node.js we don't need to do this. This is called an anonymous function, and another cool concept is we can actually take these functions and assign them to variables, just like we could, like a number or a string. Now, why would we want to do this? Well, whenever we have functions stored in a variable, we can actually use this and pass them to other functions. So set timeout is a function I'm going to talk about now. Check this out. We can actually pass print beacon in there and put like 5000 or something, and I'll be talking about what set timeout is. What it means is call this code in 5 seconds. So when I run this, of course this print beacon is going to run immediately. It's gonna wait 5 seconds and then it's gonna call this print beacon from set timeout. What I am trying to demonstrate is that you can actually take functions, assign them to variables, and the benefit of this is we can actually use these inside other functions, and you will be seeing this a lot later. The reason Node.js is becoming popular is, as you can see, whenever you are making some kind of web app that has to deal with A, real-time data and pretty much applications where speed is important, B, applications like social networks where you have a lot of requests coming in and in at once. Node.js is incredibly fast and efficient. So instead of talking, let's see how it's done in code. Now, of course, whenever we are making a website or a social network, the time consuming operation, that 5 seconds for the code we did, this would be something like querying a database. Now query the database and calculating all stuff of course takes some time. So if you had a bunch of people trying to connect your website and every single client had to wait for the other client before them to get done, obviously it would be a horrible experience. Your website would be really slow and people would never come back. Instead, if we set it up like Node.js, we will be golden. Alright, so I'm going to have functions in here. My first function, it's just going to be called place an order. So this is just going to pass in order number. So we will keep track of everything. So this is pretty much going to resemble a user trying to connect your website to get some kind of data. They want to place an order, they want to get data from your website. So inside here, the first thing I am going to make is little indicator so we can see in the log that this actually called customer order, and then we will print out the order number. So again we will be calling this function like let's say 6 or 7 times. Every time you call it, it will say customer order 1, customer order 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. Now after we print out the little indicator saying that this function was called, we need to call one more function, and this is gonna resemble during the database like we will say cook and deliver food. Now this is going to take one parameter called callback, and let me just say this like simulate a 5-second operation. So this function right here will resemble like connecting to your database or some time consuming operation. So inside here I'm going to write one piece of code that is set timeout, and of course it takes the callback and just have some time from like if I put 5000 here, it just means 5 seconds. So now what is this? So again obviously we don't have a database to connect to, but what's gonna happen is after 5 seconds it's gonna throw you callback. Now what is callback? Let's take an example for it. Let's say the server is a waiter and she goes to the chef and gives order and waits until the order is complete. In Node.js, instead of standing there like a lazy bum, she will say, "Hey chef, call me back whenever the eggs are ready." And that way I can go to something else, something useful. Just call me back whenever the order is ready. Much more efficient, and that's what this callback is. It's a few code that's going to run whenever your 5 second is up and you guys are in like half a second. What's going on? So alright. So obviously whenever a user places the order, we are going to print something out, and then we are gonna call cook and deliver food. So cook and deliver food. So the reason I explained that you can have functions and you can pass them in as parameters to other functions is this. This callback is essentially a bit of code that you want to run after 5 seconds, so we can actually put an anonymous function in here and run some bit of code. So after the food is cooked and delivered, we are going to say console.log like deliver food order, and then we will put the order number. So again, if you don't quite understand exactly what's going on, then promise me you will be by the end of this video. Now what we have to do is place whole bunch of orders, and I will put like a simulate user web request. So place an order 1 and then copy this a bunch of times. Alright, so this is gonna simulate 6 different users trying to place order, trying to connect to your database on your website at a time. Now let's run this and see what happens. Alright, the orders are placed, they all want data. 5 seconds later, look at that. So check it out. Queuing the database takes 5 seconds, nothing we can do about that. It's just a slow process. However, we had a bunch of users. Instead of taking 5 seconds waiting for the next one, 5 seconds, then we could process all the requests at the same time and send the data back in 5 seconds. So every single user was getting the best possible experience. Now at first you start looking at it and say something might not look quite right. You see that we know that computer programs run top down. In other words, this line of code is going to complete, and then once it's done, it's gonna run this line of code. So how is it that when we run this program, essentially it looks like all of these are printing like a millisecond after another? Because whenever the user places the order, here is what happens. It prints out this, and then it hops down and pretty much starts requesting data from the database. Now this process takes 5 seconds. Alright, so if that's still going on in this line of code didn't get done yet, then why are we able to hop down to 2, then 3, then 4, then 5? Aren't we waiting for 5 seconds for the database to deal with? Well, that's what confuses a lot of people, and that's what I want to clear up. This line of code set to time out, it's not saying wait for 5 seconds, pause the program, stop the program for 5 seconds, and then once you are done, call back the callback method, which just says deliver food. What happens in the set timeout method is you are scheduling this callback or this bit of code to run in 5 seconds. Now just to make that schedule, it doesn't take 5 seconds, it's instant. So you are just saying, hey database, do your thing, do whatever you got to do, however long it takes. When you are done with that, call me back. In the meanwhile, I'm gonna go on and continue with the rest of the program. So do your things, I'm going to go on handle some more users, and then when you are done, I'm going to handle more users, and then when you are done, call back this function. So again, you are not getting this line of code or point in your program and pausing before going on the rest of the program. So you are setting a schedule. So again, it confuses a lot of people, but hopefully I am able to explain it to you. So this was pretty much brief introduction to Node.js. Thank you for watching.